Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Irish NFL show. All the Muppets are out now, and I've here a bunch of Muppets with me, and we're all going to talk about the NFL and all of that. This is going to be a great gag for everybody listening on the podcast. So I suppose I should probably come back, otherwise this show will never start. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Irish NFL show. For those of you listening, I have a little puppet here. Send your comments in there in the comments about my puppet. It's a very close likeness. I should have worn a blue tie, I realize. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Okay, so actually, welcome to the Irish NFL show, brought to you by our sponsor, Cassidy Travel. And you can get packages for the playoffs and the Super Bowl, all of which are shaping up nicely. And I'm going to welcome in the team here tonight. So we have Colm, we have Brian, we have Mark, and we have Christina. Welcome, guys. Hello, everybody. All right, so a little bit of a different vibe tonight, seeing as we know how it's all kind of clicked into place. So this is, I guess, our Black Monday show, where the doom and gloom happens for coaches, head coaches, and maybe that's how we should probably start, really. Who got fired? Always a lovely place to start. So maybe let's talk a little bit first. I'll go to you, Colm, actually, the Broncos fan in the house. I know they're a bit ahead of the curve on the hunt, but maybe enlighten me. I'm not really sure what's going on there and who's fired and what's their prospects. Tell us a bit.
Yeah, so the Broncos obviously made the decision to move on from Nathaniel Hackett a few weeks ago now, which proved actually to massively improve things. So anyone who tells you not to make changes mid-season could not be more wrong. And I think realistically for the Broncos, they have 6 people on a short list, Cala, but I would say by the looks of things, Jim Harbaugh is probably the front runner. He's the one who has agreed to an in-person interview, and that is already scheduled to take place. The owner has had a conversation with Sean Payton, and I did think it was interesting that Sean Payton went out of his way to say that the QB play is not something you look for. It's the relationship with the owner and the relationship with the front office. Now, that might not, that because it's not just in relation to the Broncos. I mean, I think most of the jobs you look around at, and there's either no QB, or in the case of the Cardinals, obviously you got a QB coming back from an ACL injury. So I don't think Sean Payton's comments were specifically in relation to the Broncos with that. But a lot of people do say, oh, there's no QB, or you're lumbered with this QB. I thought that was a telling insight yesterday, and he went out of his way to say it a number of times. Following up, actually, because Michael Lombardi had said exactly that on the Pat McAfee show during the week. The Broncos obviously have reached out to a few others. We've seen to D'Amico Ryans with the 49ers. I think the Broncos are unlikely to go with a first-time head coach again, given what's happened with the past couple of coaches there. But I think whoever gets D'Amico Ryans is getting an absolutely outstanding candidate. I think he's a phenomenal leader. You hear the way players talk about him, and I have little doubt that he will be a wonderful success. But the Broncos are moving fast. They want to make a splash. I think it'll be Harbaugh or Sean Payton.
Great stuff. Okay, well, let's keep moving on the hiring and firing front. Mark, talk to me about this chap, Lovie Smith. He got fired by the Texans, even though they won pretty dramatically yesterday, right?
Yeah, one of those wins you hate to love in that regard, because by doing so, it took them out of the number 1 spot in the draft, which is now owned by the Chicago Bears. So a lot of talk, obviously, Bryce Young coming out of Alabama will be the first quarterback, if not the first player off the board. And many people would have tabbed, well, there you go, Texans take a new quarterback and start to rebuild from there. Well, Lovie, and no one can convince me otherwise. The smile on his face as they were playing and as they were winning made it pretty clear to me. He knew he was being fired. He didn't care. He was playing to win the game. These players obviously playing very professionally to win the game. And a little bit of revenge at the end. Obviously, long-term Bills head coach took them to their last Super Bowl appearance back in 2006 with, still don't know quite how, with Rex Grossman as his quarterback. So maybe a little final gift to the people of Chicago and the Bears in that regard as well. But whilst the Texans only made that move late last night, I think it was about 11:59 US East Coast time. They pulled the trigger or officially announced it. While they're behind the Broncos and the Colts and the Panthers, who have made moves earlier in the season, they're getting a lot of practice at this because, of course, last season they had David Culley, who was one and done. And in fact, if you consider Romeo Crennel, who had 12 games filling in for Bill O'Brien, the next coach the Texans hire will be their 5th head coach in 4 seasons. So they might, they still aren't getting the right head coach, but at least they're getting a lot of practice at it. Surely, they'll get there eventually. Trying is believing and all that. I mean, to give you a sense as well, Calais, how unusual this is, there's only 2 occasions since the Super Bowl started that a team has had 2 one-and-done coaches in back-to-back years. They're both with the 49ers, actually, and soon after both those events, they went on to a Super Bowl. So you can say it doesn't necessarily predate that you're doomed for the next decade by doing this. But that's how bizarre and unusual it is. And again, maybe this was written in the stars. Lovie Smith was the defensive coordinator last year. They were 4-13 last year. They were the 2nd worst team in terms of yards allowed. And he got the head job mainly because of the furore that then surrounded Brian Flores. And they kind of, I would say, chickened out on making an offer to Brian Flores when he started suing the NFL. So it wasn't exactly that they were in love with Lovie Smith. The performance of the Texans has been good for the last few weeks. But overall, you go 4-13 on the season, it's going to be a tough sell. They haven't had a quarterback. They haven't had a quarterback since the Cleveland quarterback was departed from the team. And they're still suffering with that. But the rebuild continues. The new head coach search continues. And, it's been quiet of a Black Monday because 3 of the teams made their moves early. It's just Lovie Smith and the next gentleman I think we're going to talk about who got the bad news in their walking papers last night or this morning.
Fair enough. Texans saying, I'm not in Lovie. Right? That sounds fair to everyone? Okay, perfect. All right, Brian, maybe talk to me about Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff with a K. Strong name. Bad day for him, though.
Yeah, he's fallen off the cliff, Badoom, very quickly, having only signed a contract last off season. Like, this team were in the playoffs last year, Calais, and they went, obviously they were one and done. They went to the wild card game, were beaten convincingly by the Rams, but it was a very good season in his first year as head coach. He'd come in from the college game. He didn't have a really great record in the college game, but he seemed to have got a good rally from the team last year, and Kyler Murray and him seemed to build up a good connection, which led to the both of them getting contracts in the last off season. And then this year it's just gone horribly wrong. I mean, I look back and I reflect on the last 12 months, and I think there's 4 things in particular where it was evident that things weren't right, which first of all was giving Kyler Murray the massive contract last summer, and he's not as much to blame maybe as the GM and the owner, but there was a lot of stipulations and rules and regulations in that contract about how he was supposed to put time in terms of understanding what was expected of him from a playbook standpoint, and it just came out in the media and it really wasn't the kind of information you want leaked, and that didn't really start the season off on a good note for him. I think there was a midpoint part of the season where they were playing a game on a Thursday night and he got into an argument with the quarterback Kyler Murray, who looked like they had a really good relationship throughout the course of the last year, and it took one of the players to step in, and this kind of went viral because there was a program during the season, Hard Knocks, did it in season program. Essentially you were able to hear all the dialogue that was going on, and there was a very fractious relationship. Then around November, the GM Steve Keim, who's also now been released of his duties, he departed, and he put it down to health reasons, but a lot of people felt that was kind of let's show him the door first before they show the head coach. It didn't come as a surprise today. It's just amazing in the NFL how quickly things can turn around. We spoke last year about teams that win 4 games and are in the playoffs, or win 4 games and they find themselves in the Super Bowl, like the Bengals. How quickly things change from a team that was in the playoffs last year, given their quarterback a contract, given their head coach a contract. He's now departed. It was inevitable. It came as no surprise today. It'd be interesting to see where they go now. We're talking about potential candidates already. There's a lot of offensive coordinators and young coordinators. Collins alluded to Ryan with the 49ers, but one name that's already seems to be high on the pecking order is Vance Joseph, and he had his time with the Broncos as head coach, but there's a lot of people, and Colin straight away is saying no, but there's a lot of people that feel he's very well respected within the Cardinals organisation, and he might get the opportunity to get another opportunity to be a head coach and prove himself again. I'm not sure whether it'll work out. We've seen already this year with Josh McDaniel, former Broncos head coach. I don't know if it's the Broncos thing when they get their second opportunity it doesn't work out, but look, who knows? And he's high in the pecking order. I'm sure there will be some people that want to work with Kyler Murray in the long run.
Fair enough. And I have a note here, Christina, to ask you a little bit about Colts and the Panthers. I suppose, from my perspective, I think they should hold on to the Panthers coach. But I don't know if that's what we're going to talk about here. So maybe enlighten me on what were Black Monday related things we're going to say here.
I think it's really interesting. If you look at Colts, for instance, they fired their head coach after 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, Frank Reich, and they put in Jeff Saturday, who actually played for them for 13 seasons. Hasn't really been great for Jeff, to be honest with you. He's still full of the same offensive woes. What the next season is going to bring for them, I'm not quite sure. I don't buy into the Jeff Saturday story. And they're 1-6 since they took over. So thanks, Mark. It's always great to have Mark around for sure, and the rest of the guys having your back on the show. I haven't bought into Jeff Saturday. I do think that he's come out today and said after meetings with everyone in the team that there's going to be a lot of changes coming. There's going to be a lot of standards coming. They do need to have a shake-up. Everything is going to be a lot more different if he is the head coach and he's got a chance to be able to pick the players that's going to come in the draft. Will that happen? I don't think so. I do think they need to have a strong head coach go in here, someone like Sean Payton, that would be able to do a shake-up within the situation. Colm touched on Harbaugh, and I do want to ask Colm, how does he feel about Jim coming from college football and coming into Denver eventually, and how is he going to gel with Russell Wilson? Because I do think that's 2 egos that just won't get on together, but that's for another day. And then when we're talking about the Panthers, so again, Panthers fired their head coach. They got rid of Matt Rule. Panthers are actually in the search right now for a head coach. There's a lot of names been thrown around there. I think the Panthers as well, they need a lot more work. They need a lot of structure. And I don't really know if that's something that firing Matt Rule would have actually been able to prevent, for sure.
Okay, good stuff. All right. Well, look, let's do a little bit of looking back, I think, as well, right? We have season predictions. So this is before my time. You made predictions for how the season was going to play out. Isn't that right, guys? And then we're now going to see how terribly wrong you were, or how terribly right you were, I guess. What am I looking at first here? So will I go through offensive rookie this season? How do we want to do this, guys? Do I want to go by category around each of you?
Yeah, I think Callum, maybe start with the offensive player of the year, because that's an interesting one. If we start there, though, maybe Mark mightn't want you to start there, but I think you should.
I'll jump in. Where did I go on this one? I'm just trying to reflect on my soul searching today when I looked at this. Offensive player of the year, I think I'm in with a shout. I went for Josh Allen.
Okay, well, with that said, then, offensive player of the year, Mark, talk to me. Okay, or Brian, whatever.
Well, Brian has a shout. He went for Josh Allen. Colm, I think, has got the winner. He went for Justin Jefferson. OP of the year tends to be the top non-quarterback award in many years, to be really fair. So I think Justin Jefferson is gonna walk with that. So I think Colm's going to be the winner there. I, for some reason, went with Jonathan Taylor, who, in fairness, got injured and played on the dreadful Colts side. But I love the fact. Can we focus on the picks, the one I won for the season? Can we talk about that? Can we talk about me winning this? Or we're going to talk about all of these? Because this is going to be a pretty horrific 10 or 15 minutes for me, is all I'm going to say.
You haven't lit it up at all, Mark. I was reflecting on some of your picks. Defensive player.
How, Mark, what I want to know is, how can you be so good at picking the game results every week and so bad at previewing what may play out in the season? Truly Jekyll and Hyde.
Do you know what? I think it's a public service, Colin. I fully appreciate that some people may not know who to bet on for these awards. So I want to steer them to the people they shouldn't bet for. So I consider it my duty to pick all the wrong picks to make sure that people won't make the same mistake. So for everyone listening, you're
Reverse
welcome for
psychology
me to help
at
you.
finest.
I think we're losing Callie on kind of a bit of connectivity issues there. So yeah, defensive player of the year then. And Christina, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this far too much. I thought Myles Garrett was going to dominate for the Browns and that they were going to be the only thing that kept them going in it. Colin, you had Rashawn Gary, which is the only pick I think you made that kind of put a bit of a question mark over.
Yeah, I certainly bought into the hype surrounding the Packers defense pre-season. A lot of talk about how good they were going to be, strongest defense that Rodgers was going to have. Now, in fairness, Gary did quite well for the first nine weeks. So now, don't get me wrong, he was not in the Defensive Player of the Year category, but he was doing okay. And then he obviously had the injury after 9 weeks, and really that kind of scuppered the entirety of the season for him, and the
True.
entirety of the season for the Packers, as it turned out.
And then, Christina, you may agree or disagree with this, but I'm going to point out that Brian got it 50% right because he at least got the surname right. It was just the first name of the Defensive Player of the Year he got wrong.
No, actually, no. I put the wrong name in today. I definitely went with the Niners player.
So you're going to claim you went for Nick Bosa rather than Joey? Is that it now?
Absolutely.
I think we'll have to go back and look at this. Now, I did actually look at the file before we came on today, and I must have looked at the file about 3 or 4 times, and anyone who was in it could see me in the document actually laughing at some of your picks. Now, some of them I do agree with, and then there's some other ones which are very questionable. Knowing you guys so well with your picks, I'm like, really? Is this what you're going? I do have to question, though, for sure. Mark, there's no way you're going to get away from Myles Garrett. Ever. You're never going to get away from that ever again. But because Kala is gone, let's go to Coach of the Year, because this is something I think we should all be looking at for sure. And I thought your picks were okay. And I'm actually really happy that, do you know what? I'm really happy that there was no real dreamer picks in there. So let's talk about Brian's Coach of the Year.
I have to remember who I went with.
You went with Mike McDaniel, bro.
Oh, God. Well, look. Halfway through the course of this season, I was crowing on this show about, look who I picked for Coach of the Year, because everybody was raving about him as he was the new hot commodity in the NFL, and he was going to lead this team on a merry dance against the Bills. He still made the playoffs, guys, in this 4th year. Let's bear that in mind. It wasn't the most enjoyable of games yesterday against the Jets, but they did serve up a defeat to the Bills, and they did run them very close a few weeks ago. So who knows? Maybe he could shock the Bills Mafia next weekend in the playoffs.
I actually want to get everyone in the audience who's watching their comments as well on who they think should be Coach of the Year. So do drop us a message if you're watching us on Twitter, you're watching us on YouTube, or you're watching on Facebook, whatever feed you're looking at, just let us know, who do you think should be Coach of the Year? Who do you think is Defensive Player of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year? And let us know who you think is even Rookie of the Year before we get to it. Mark.
Come on, this
Mark.
wasn't a bad one. This wasn't bad. I picked Sean McDermott. He's got the number 2 seed. They won lots of games. I will say a couple of people we're not going to talk about because we didn't pick them, but deserve consideration. Doug Peterson turning around the Jags. Brian Daboll turning around and getting the Giants into the playoffs. They will be there. Sean McDermott, despite the job he's done obviously the last couple of weeks as well, to be really fair, will not win Head Coach of the Year. Yet again, if you ask me now today who's going to win Head Coach of the Year, I'm going to defer to Colin Nostradamus Cronin, because I think he's got the winner here in relation to it.
Absolutely. Colin.
I don't know. I went with Nick Sirianni, but I think Daboll probably will end up getting it. I do think, though it depends. Sometimes Coach of the Year can be a little bit like the Best Director Oscar. You tend to win it for a movie that you didn't deserve it for. And some, maybe Sirianni could have got it last year. So I wouldn't be surprised. I just think that the job that obviously he's done with the Eagles, and in fairness to the Eagles, the job that Howie has done, and we saw Howie enjoying himself with the fans earlier in the season, and I imagine they expect to go a little deeper than the one and done in the playoffs this year. But what a turnaround for him, given how his Eagles career started. We all remember him handing over playoff duties kind of a few weeks into the season last year, and they now are the number 1 seed in the NFC.
I'm sorry, I have to take Cullum's side in this one for sure. I do think Cullum, I think it's going to be Nick Sirianni, or else it's going to be Brian Daboll, which Flair said it. Brian's going to be just delighted with life if that happens for sure. We won't be able to see him stop grinning for the whole year. Oh my God. Thank God I've got my Pats mug to remember the good old days. It's 2007. Let's talk about MVP of the year. This is one of the best ones I am really looking forward to for sure. This year we've had so many new players come into the league. We've got so many old players who came back to the league, but they've just been fantastic at what they're doing. So do let us know who you're voting for MVP. But let's go around the room. Let's start with Cullum, because Cullum, you've been getting these really well so far.
In terms of the MVP, to me, it was kind of obvious from the outset. There was a lot of love for other people, but when you have Andy Reid masterminding things, you are always going to be at an advantage. And when you have the skill that this particular gentleman has, and then you add in Andy Reid's genius, I think every year he should probably start as the favorite for the MVP race. Now, I went with Patrick Mahomes. I think Patrick Mahomes should be and probably will be crowned the league MVP. A lot of questions how he would do with Tyreek Hill no longer around. Well, he showed that, and there were times where it felt like he almost single-handedly was the reason that the Chiefs stumbled over the line at times. But my goodness, if you're stumbling over the line and you're ending up as the number 1 seed in the AFC, well, you're doing something right. So yeah, to be a fan of another team in the division, I think it's going to be a long 15 years or so.
I think it's really interesting, Brian's pick, because I would have thought that would have been Mark's pick for sure. So Brian, do you want to enlighten us into who you picked? Because myself and Mark are both fans of this person. Huge fans.
I went with Tom Brady. I thought that the Bucs.
Sorry, Brian, can you speak up? I didn't hear that one. Who did you go with again?
Thomas Eddie Brady. Is that what you call him? He's around the same age as me. I felt sorry for him. He's had a difficult time, obviously, personally. And I just felt that, the extra encouragement and push from myself in terms of predicting him to be the MVP. And look, he's not going to get it. But yeah, here we are again, and he's in the playoffs. And right now, the way the Cowboys are playing, who's to say they won't turn them over this weekend? I expected more from the Bucs this year. Obviously, they've been a great disappointment, but because of the nature of the division, they've managed to find their way into the playoffs. It hasn't been the season anything like the form we have. But I would say one thing about Brady. We have seen this season in games when it's on the line. The Rams game, the Saints game, even the Cards game on a Monday Night Football, when they weren't playing well, they still found ways, like last week. Although Colin puts it down to the implosion of the Panthers, and he's probably right in that they wet the bed when they saw Brady coming late in the fourth quarter. But look, Brady just has the way of getting things done, and who's to say you won't do it next Monday Night Football against the Cowboys? Mad pick. But I did pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I know we're going to get to that as well. So there was a whole storyline behind it.
Always love a bit of that Tom Brady magic. Can't beat it. Mark, who did you pick? And it's definitely not Brady. I've seen that.
It's not Brady. It wasn't a bad pick again. I was going with the whole Bills were going to run the table. Sean McDermott for Coach of the Year. Josh Allen as MVP. He will be 3rd or 4th, I would say. I'd say Joe Burrow is going to be up there. Jalen Hurts is definitely going to be up there, but Patrick Mahomes is going to win it this year. I also just want to give a shout out. I mean, various comments coming in. Thank you, everybody, so much, and agreeing with different picks. But Owen called out one coach we should have touched on, especially after this weekend, Dan Campbell of the Lions. He's done an amazing job. He's probably done a pretty amazing job over the last 2 years in what he's done. He and his staff have rehabilitated Jared Goff. They're one of the most dynamic offenses in the entire NFL this season. And do you know what? once they started working out that defense, right, they went 7-2 over their final 9 games, including a pretty, let's just say, extremely impressive performance in Lambeau Field with nothing on the line except for stopping their divisional rival going to the playoffs. Calling a hook and ladder play with just under 2 minutes to go when you're trying to drain the clock was something special. So he deserves a call out. Again, he won't win it. It'll be between Daboll and Sirianni. But MVP is Mahomes all day, every day.
So let's move on to Comeback Player of the Year. I don't even have a song for this. We should be playing a comeback tune in the background for this. Mark, I'm going to go to you first. You're shaking your head. You're literally drawing the attention to yourself. Let's go.
6 games in, I said Geno Smith's going to win this. Can I claim that one? I did call Geno when the season started. Before the season started, for some reason, I even looked at this pick and said, why didn't I pick that? And I picked Derrick Henry. I don't even know what he'd be coming back. I mean, he was coming back from injury, but it wasn't that bad. I don't know what I was thinking. It's not Derrick Henry. Geno Smith should win this, in my mind, every day of the week. I more want to call out Colin for sneaking in 2 picks in relation to it. One of which was very good and one of which was very, very bad, Colin. Come on.
No one likes a snitch, by the way, Mark. No one likes a snitch. Colin.
Yeah, well, I went with my head pick was Christian McCaffrey because it was the only thing preventing Christian McCaffrey from being a superstar, as we know, we've seen him do it, was injuries. And we've seen him do it again this year. He may well end up with a Super Bowl ring come the middle of February. And what Mark is alluding to, and you can watch it back, is at the end I did sneak in because I have a soft spot for him. I said I would love to see my favorite, the Chicago one, Allen Robinson, have a great year. Suffice to say, the only way Allen Robinson might have had a worse year was if he had joined my Denver Broncos rather than the LA Rams.
That wasn't the best of picks, Colin, wasn't it? And I'm going to general consensus here. I win this one. I went for Saquon Barkley. What a season he's had. I said he'd break his rookie year numbers. He has. He hasn't met the 15 touchdowns he got that season, but there's still time yet. But no, he's had a fantastic season. He's come back from a serious knee injury and propelled the Giants to where they are today. Yeah, so I'm very happy with my pick.
I feel like we should actually have a show just looking at the picks based on the amount of injuries that there's been this season. This season has been phenomenal with injuries, especially given the state of the pitches in a lot of cases. And we've seen a lot of the players go and petition to have the pitches changed. And I do think there's something in there that we should look at for sure over the next few weeks. Do let us know the rest of the picks that you guys are looking at in the audience. Do tell us who you think is going to be the offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year. I do think this is something that's really, really cool. I think we're all going to agree for sure with some of the guys' picks. There's 1 or 2 people that have really stood out. So let's get to the offensive rookie of the year. Colin, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, my pick, I knew making the pick, it probably, he wasn't going to be maybe have the numbers, but I do think if you were to consider who is probably the most entertaining, I would argue, of the wide receivers, George Pickens. His ability to go up and catch a ball is ridiculous. He does absolutely insane things on the field. And if the Steelers had actually gone with Kenny Pickett from the off rather than Mitchell Trubisky, who knows? Maybe they would be in the playoffs. But I think George Pickens is going to improve as the years go on, and he is at times going to make defenders look very silly. The only question is, can they get him involved enough and keep him involved enough? But when you put a ball up there and you want somebody to go and get it, my goodness, does he make catches.
He's been like, I don't even know what type of animal jumps that high, if anyone knows. But he has been really, really good. He's been shown over the last few weeks a very, very strong line for the Steelers, really helping them get towards that. And you're right, Kenny Pickett should have been the starting quarterback. I think they were trying to give him a chance. Trubisky was there. Steelers have a lot to answer for, but look at Magic Mike done it again. Mark, who did you pick?
Yeah, I went with Chris Olave, Christina. Yeah.
No, Mark.
No,
Come on,
no, I
tell
didn't.
the truth.
No, I didn't. I should have said Chris Olave because that is what Brian O'Leary said, and I think Chris Olave is going to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year quite comfortably. As always with Offensive Rookie of the Year, I always think it's terrible. There are some guards and tackles that will play out their skin. Last year, I do actually think it should have gone to Tristan Wirfs, or 2 years ago, it should have gone to Tristan Wirfs, but it never will. It will go to one of the skill players and skill positions. And in a year where it's light on the quarterbacks, next you go to the glamour boys at the wide receiver position, and Chris Olave is going to walk it. I picked Treylon Burks. I was going the wide receiver route as well. I was steering that direction. He's had an all right season at times. He's flashed at times, but not in any way replicating the downfield production that the Titans used to have there. So yeah, Chris Olave and Brian, I think, ding, 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 wins this round, to say the least.
I'm not sure if that is the case. I thought Kenneth Walker was a shoe-in to, and Fred's put it up there that Kenneth Walker, the Seahawks.
I think a lot. Well, I mean, look, this is the thing. We wait to see. Kenneth Walker might be there or thereabouts. I think Olave has just had too much production and too much presence throughout the season. He's been the only depth threat for the Saints, and that shows up.
I would agree. Me and Colin were fortunate to be in London. He scored his first NFL career touchdown in that game, and you could see that day how impactful he can be on the team. And for a team that's had a difficult season, I mean, Andy Dalton played quarterback to start with James Winston. You have Taysom Hill stepping in the quarterback at times. I mean, they've had a very difficult, but he has been the one key bright spot for the team, and it gives them a bit of impetus going into the offseason that if they do get a good quarterback in, they've still got some reasonably good players in offense that can do a lot of things. But it's a difficult one. But yeah, he's been a standout. He's been a great player to watch.
Should we be also talking about Brock Purdy? I mean, he didn't play that many games, but my goodness, the impact that he had since he entered the league has been quite something. And yeah, everyone obviously has been waiting for nigh on 2 decades for the next Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. Well, this young man has certainly gotten off to a decent start, you would have to say.
Well, I'm going to say we shouldn't talk about Brock Purdy for the same reason, and it's the only reason why Walker won't be Olave in my mind to it, is Walker was injured for a couple of games. There were a couple of games he wasn't in. He didn't start a number of games, so he's only started 11. He only played in 15. And Brock Purdy, Colm has been fantastic in that high-powered 49ers offense, but he'll get deducted because he's only played 6 games in a 17-game season. I think it's 6 or it's 7. And secondly, how much is Brock Purdy and how much is the fact that he is surrounded by C-Mac, Samuel Kittle, etc. But he'll get some attention, I'm sure, and maybe a few votes in there. And we don't have to talk about Defensive Rookie of the Year, and we can just move swiftly on. That's
No, we do. We absolutely do. So we're going to touch on Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I'm really interested to hear what Brian has to say first. Mark, look, if you're not happy, you can just hang up and I'll text you when it's done, and then you can come back
let's
on.
just get to the
okay?
Super Bowl picks. I'm good to get to the Super Bowl picks.
I think you just need to be happy that the audience you can't see their faces. That's all. It's okay. You're looking at all of us. You can't see theirs.
I went with heart over head in this one, and I selected Kayvon Thibodeau. And in fairness, he missed. Marcus touched on players getting injured, and we spoke about it earlier in the show. The impact of injuries on people's season. He had a slower start to his NFL career because he was missing for the first 4 games. But what he's done in the last part of the season is showing why the Giants have selected him. He's been the standout player in defense, and obviously he's had Colin rightly called out last week about his antics after the sack on Nick Foles. But anyway, overall, of course, in the last month, he's made a huge impact to the team, which I thought we would have seen earlier in the season. But obviously, it takes time for these players to find their feet in the NFL, and doesn't help when you're obviously injured in preseason and you're missing games early on. But between him and Hutchinson have shown and proven already why they've been top 5 picks. So I think it was a fair pick, but I'm interested to see the other guys' picks now.
Sorry, can I just check, Brian? You picked 2 Giants players for the awards they won't win, but you didn't pick Daboll for the one the Giants might win. Just I want to spread around a little bit of slurry on this one, okay?
I don't think you can argue it's the Saquon pick. I think Saquon has put himself up there. He's not going to get it, but like, who is going to get comeback player of the year? Am I missing one?
Geno Smith is going to get it.
Gino, what's he coming back from? He wasn't out last year.
He was a backup. He wasn't in. He wasn't playing. It doesn't have to be he's coming back from an injury.
Oh, I get it. It's a longevity thing. He's coming back from 10 years of doing nothing, so they have to give him.
So, Colin, you had ding, ding, ding. I would say a winner, although we should have a bit of a debate and discussion about this. You had, you could say ketchup, you could say hot, you could say mayonnaise, but they were all ultimately sauce.
Yes, indeed, and I know in Healy's or Hurley's comment there, I think was right, because I think the debate will probably come down to sauce. Tariq Woolen for the Seahawks. My goodness, if we were doing executive of the year, there would be no, there wouldn't even be a debate. There wouldn't be a contest. I mean, you might well be talking executive of the decade in terms of what the Seahawks have pulled off with the draft, the haul of picks, and avoiding the contract. But Sauce, I think, has been outstanding for the Jets. I know a lot of fans will be annoyed and say he's very handsy and that he gets away with it. But ultimately, I think that's what happens in the league. He has a giant ego, but you need that to play in the New York market. And in fairness, just about every single cornerback has that, whether they are a top 5 pick in the draft or whether they are an unrestricted or an undrafted free agent. It kind of comes with playing cornerback. I think, for the Jets, ultimately it was the offense that cost them. Defensively, they've been very sound. And what has been really interesting to see is how cornerbacks are now transitioning into the league a lot quicker. It used to take a long time for them to really learn the position, but we have seen them come in and make an impact from the off. And Sauce is certainly amongst the top cornerbacks in the league, not just a rookie, but top cornerbacks in the entirety of the league in his first year there.
He's on mute. He's decided he's going to keep himself muted so he doesn't have to say who he picked. Mark, unmute yourself so you can actually say your piece, and then we can move on to the actual picks.
He cannot. I as an admin, I've tried unmuting him, but I think the gremlins in the machine have decided that they've had enough of Mark's picks, and they don't want to hear any more.
Well, before we move on, we'll give you Mark's pick just for the crack, anyways. And Mark actually picked. You guys may know why Mark picked Travon Walker.
Oh, we have lost Brian now as well. People are dropping like flies this evening. I think he went with him. I think Walker projected very well. Mark, can
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Technology, yes. Walker was my pick. Trayvon Walker, 3.5 sacks, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble. It didn't have a bad rookie season, but of course he's not going to win this. I was going to say the top 3 defensive rookies of the year, and you can debate the order, and I think there is a debate about the order potentially, are all Arnold Schwarzenegger related. So you have Sauce Gardner, who was the Eraser, and Eraser being a very bad Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. You have Tariq Woolen, who's the Interceptor, which should be the name of an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And then you have Aiden Hutchinson, who, let's just face it, this season was the Terminator. Just the athleticism in a man that big, that powerful, that strong, that fast has been unbelievable. So people who want to make an argument for Hutchinson, I can agree with, but it's Sauce all day. Hot sauce, barbecue sauce. He's just been fantastic. And yes, I agree, Colin. John Schneider up there on Executive of the Year, but the job the Jets have done and the turnaround with Wilson, with Gardner, and that draft has been substantial. Not Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson, I should say, but they still have options.
So let's move on to the picks. And I'm really excited about this because I actually have gone through them all. And some of them I actually would have done myself in the background because I do something else here at home with the Steelers fan. So let's talk about I'm going to skip the AFC East. We all called it. It was going to be the Bills. We all knew it. They just were. And they've gone out and they've proven how really good they are. Let's talk about the AFC North because I'm really interested in this because two of you, it was very much, Colm, you had the winner, obviously. And then Brian and Mark had the same team colluding with each other. It's shocking, this colluding together. So, we'll go with the two boys first, and then Colm, we'll go with you since you're the clear winner on this one.
I thought the Bengals would bounce back to reality. I thought they'd have a bit of a Super Bowl hangover. And they did at the start of the season. They weren't very good at the start of the season. The offensive line took time to gel, and the Ravens, for a long time, were the hotter team at the start of the season. And it looked, for a long time, like it made sense. And the Ravens were going to win the division. Then Lamar Jackson's injury woes returned and derailed their season. And I think they managed to get in the playoffs because they had so many wins built up. And it didn't matter that they lost a few games towards the back end of the season. But the Bengals hit the form at the right time. And, looking back now, I should have stuck with the Bengals. I think, in fact, I didn't even pick the Bengals to make the playoffs. So there you go. Silly me. Tip the Bengal will be coming for me again.
Yeah, and I was on the Ravens as well. And arguably, I suppose you can say if, but coulda, woulda, shouldas. But if Lamar Jackson stayed healthy, the Ravens would have won the AFC North. But the reality is the Bengals are up there being one of the hottest teams in the NFL, 8 wins in a row. The only thing hotter than them has been the 49ers with 10 in a row. And the Ravens, yet again, the end of the season, have been too vanilla ice. They've been ice cold, ice, baby. Yeah.
Well, Colm, you had the winner, and I'm still trying to source that tracksuit for you to celebrate your win. So do you want to tell us what was the thoughts behind picking the Bengals for this one?
Yeah, I was actually looking myself last night to find the glorious monstrosity, I think I referred to it as. And if anyone can find that white Bengal tiger tracksuit, please send it my way. And I promise I will wear it. And Mark will do a rare for everybody. To me, it was very simple. They got Joe Burrow, and they made the moves that they needed to make in terms of the O-line. It took a little bit of time to come together, but Burrow, he's a phenomenal QB, and you saw him in terms of the press conference yesterday. And some people will say it's ego, but he talked about his the window and whether they were in a window, and he said the window is my entire career. And that's what you want. You want your QB to have that level of confidence. He's the leader of your franchise. And I think as long as he is there, they will be there or thereabouts. They're not going to win it every year, but they will be there or thereabouts. And I think that they will, make quite a lot of noise in the playoffs this year.
I think what's really interesting is, as we're going through this, because I'm watching in Mindful at the time tonight, is that I'm looking here. I can see the AFC West. It was a blowout. All of you guys agreed with the Chiefs, but AFC South, you all picked the Colts, and we've all been magically surprised by the man with the glorious hair, as Colm likes to refer to him, the Jags. What a season they have had. I know we talk about this every week, guys, but wow, it's been amazing this season, for sure. Anyone want to give thoughts on that? How it went wrong?
Well, Christine, I'll go even one step further, because I think the exact words I used were, Matt Ryan coming into the Colts. Finally, they've got a quarterback they can rely upon to pair with that defense. They've got Jonathan Taylor, my offensive player of the year, who will power the offense. I didn't expect their offensive line to resolve so much. And at the same token, I do think I said the words on our preview show. Let's face it, lads. It's either the Colts or the Titans, because the Jags need too much time and the Texans won't be anywhere there. I mean, one of those statements was true. It was just the rest that was horribly wrong. And fair play to Doug Peterson, as we called out. I think he will get some consideration for Coach of the Year, albeit like in the lower votes. And fair play to Trevor Lawrence, who is showing what he's made of. Interesting, he nearly blew at times that Titans game. I mean, if they hadn't won that game against the Titans, some of those missed throws critical throws on Saturday night might have been looked at with a different light. But fair play, they won the division. They overcame a 4-game deficit in the last 7 games, and the Titans rather imploded in the circumstances. But yeah, not our finest pick, to be fair.
I thought that was hilarious that all of you got it wrong. It's crazy. Even I suppose you two are wrong as well. The NFC East. Brian and Colin both had the Eagles. Mark, you had the Cowboys. Who wants to take the East?
Maybe I'll run through maybe the East and the North because I think we have a deserving a division to talk about. Look, to me the East was always about the Eagles and how they were going to do. For them in the playoffs, it's about is will Hurts be fit? Will Lane Johnson be fit? But they were the dominant team in the NFC this year. Obviously 49ers coming up strong, but it was all about the Eagles. And in the North, it is Jair Alexander, my goodness, you were not off our television screens for the past 2 or 3 weeks until last night. And then you just disappeared. Gone. Where were you? All your interviews, your big hat, nowhere to be found. And Pat McAfee, we saw you earlier in the week telling the Lions that just win. Good luck. Just win. Just win. Well, the Packers, 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacks. We can talk and look, we may have our quibbles with Aaron Rodgers, but he is an infinitely better person than Brett Favre is. But 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play, and they will have 2 Super Bowls to show for it. It is quite extraordinary. I wonder if you're a Packers fan at this point, you have to be fed up, and you have to be wondering what the offseason brings. It is a storied franchise, incredible history. We all know about Lombardi and what they did there, but they have an awful lot of stuff to sort out in the offseason.
I totally agree. And we'll see if Aaron Rodgers is going to be part of the Packers team come this season coming. Now, we're going to go into the NFC West, and we're going to give it to Brian. And Brian has also prepared a video for this.
I don't get many things right. In fact, I got a lot wrong. And when I did this, you all thought I was bonkers. So I thought this was a special night to give you this, a nice little reminder. Looked at the Seattle Seahawks over under is 5.5. I'm going to say they win 9 games, if not more. So I'm just not buying into this falling off the cliff of the team as a whole. I know the quarterback situation is concerning, and luckily we all felt that Jimmy G was going there, but I still think that they have enough players there that could cause a lot of upsets, and I think Carroll will be motivated to shock a lot of people. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to go to the playoffs anymore, which I did last week, which was on the base that Jimmy G was going to be the quarterback, but I still think they're going to have a good season and win a minimum of 9 games. 9-8 Seahawks in the playoffs.
You just said there though. Said I'm not necessarily saying they're going to the playoffs.
Oh my God! Stop being your day job, please.
Hey, come on! I'm going to be exact. But all credit to Brian on that. He called the Seahawks. I don't think too many people were calling 9 wins at that point in time. Certainly none of us were, and he got that one absolutely bang on the head. However, if we actually break down our divisional picks, I believe the other 2 gentlemen went, look, I've got to have something I got right myself tonight. The 2 gentlemen went for the Rams, and I was the only one who was lauding the 49ers and saying they would win the division. So that was the one rare occurrence I got right, I think.
Mark, you're seriously trying to pull yourself back from all these MVP rookies and everyone's picks this week. It's not going to happen. Sorry, you can't. It's not going to happen. Let's talk about Super Bowl. Very excited. It is literally close to crunch time. 4 weeks away. Can't wait. I'm already prepping the food. That's how excited I am. Mark and Colin are going to Arizona, and I'm thinking about food. So let's go and look at the Super Bowl picks. So Colin, who did you have initially for the Super Bowl this year? And who have you changed it? Are you thinking it's going to be someone else?
So my pick for the Super Bowl was the Buffalo Bills over the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that raised a few eyebrows when I went for it. I still think it is a pretty good shout. I think ultimately in the AFC, I think it could be a coin toss between the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. I do think the Bills have the motivation, obviously, now. And again, we heard great news regarding Damar this evening. He has gone back to Buffalo, which is really wonderful news. But their defense, they have got to sort that out. But when they need Josh Allen to go up with a big play, he is. And as I discussed in terms of the Eagles, will Hurts be fit? Will Lane Johnson be fit? If they are, and if Lane Johnson truly is, I think they are in with a real shot. I think them against the 49ers will be fascinating to see how that goes. But yeah, I'm sticking with that, and let's see. I do hope that the Bills do it, and I suppose my hope would be that whoever the winner is, I would love to see it be a first-time winner. So whether that is the Bills, the Bengals, or whoever, that it is a first-time Super Bowl ring.
That you touched on that, but also the fact that you touched on the 49ers. We're going to go to Mark. Mark.
Look, any of these picks about players and coaches, they're not relevant, Christina. All that matters are the games on the field. And, I'm going to stand by my record on that. I picked at the start of the year, and you're talking about the looks that Brian got about the Seahawks. I definitely got looks when I said that the San Francisco 49ers were going to go to the Super Bowl. Bearing in mind this at the time, they're relying upon Trey Lance. And certainly a few weeks into that season when Trey Lance got injured, Jimmy G didn't look too hot. There were moments. But currently on a 10-game winning streak, I had the 49ers against the Bills in the Super Bowl. I honestly can't remember what way I had the winner. I think it was the 49ers over the Bills, but that's how long ago it was that I struggled to remember entirely. So that bet's still on. That pick is still on. I'm feeling semi-confident. It'll be the number 2 seeds in both conferences. So I'll stick and let it ride and continue on that vein of the 49ers.
And Mark.
Brian.
Sorry, Brian. Oh my God, my brain is broken. I'm not to the time as well.
Mark, you are right. You did pick the 49ers to win, so you did remember slightly. I went for, and both teams are still in the playoffs, so I have a reasonable chance, but I don't think it's going to materialise. I went for the Bucs to win the Super Bowl against the Bills, so I still see the Bills winning the Super Bowl, but it won't be the Bucs. I think it'll be the Bills Giants at this stage. They might roll out Scott Norwood again to kick a field goal for the Bills, and he'll probably put it wide right, and the Giants will get their 5th ring. No, all joking aside, if I was to pick them now, I'd probably say 49ers, Chiefs. But again, who's to say the Bengals won't be back? There's the AFC. Outside the top 3 in the AFC, I can't see anybody shocking them. I think it'll be the Bengals, Chiefs, or Bills in the Super Bowl. And on the other side, I could see Eagles, 49ers. Who knows?
I can't wait to see what happens in a few weeks' time when we get back on screen to see who was right and who was wrong. But before we finish, the wildcard games start this week. We're so excited. The AFC wildcard games start this weekend. It's not next weekend. It's this weekend coming. The Chiefs are on a bye week. So this week we have the AFC is start on Sunday at 6 o'clock, which is the Bills, Dolphins, Jaguars, Chargers, and the Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Guys, how do you see this playing out this weekend?
I'll jump in terms of the Jags and the Chargers very quickly. You could call it the Timothy Bowl if people remember those wonderful ads from the 80s and the early 90s. I will just say I think Staley has copped an awful lot of flack for playing the starters. I remember Mike Shanahan doing the exact same thing for the Broncos in 1998. The Broncos had the number 1 seed locked up, but he played the starters because they wanted Terrell Davis to get a 2,000-yard season, and he did. I also remember Tom Coughlin, and we talked about this at LT, doing the exact same for the Giants. I think people take different approaches, but they are going into it not in form, and that was a concerning loss to the Broncos, whereas the Jags are going in, and that should be really fascinating, though, to see Herbert going up against Lawrence.
The Bills Dolphins game, it's probably the most one-sided wildcard game from a betting perspective anyway. Like, the Bills are minus 11 points, and I was quite surprised with that. I know the Dolphins have had a really poor run of it, and they scraped in with Skylar Thompson, a quarterback, yesterday. But the general consensus is that they are going to try to get Tua back for this game. And the one thing I would say about Tua, a few weeks ago on that Saturday night game, I think it was the week prior to Christmas when they played, the Bills only beat them on a field goal, and there's a lot of Dolphins fans out there, and we spoke about it on the show on that Monday, that felt that was a game in which they let slip away. They beat them earlier in the season when we saw the offensive coordinator for the Bills lose his mind in the stands, and he was bouncing everything off the wall, including his head at one stage. I wonder how much they can frustrate this Bills team this weekend, or maybe the Bills will just run away with it like everybody expects. But I think it might be a little bit tighter than people think. I think the Dolphins will give a good account of themselves. What has been. The Dolphins are there now. It's like anything. Just get yourself in, see how you get on. I think they give a good account of themselves on Sunday against the Bills.
Mark,
yeah,
final game.
I was trying to find the mute button. Actually, that Bills Dolphins game is obviously very similar to the last game in terms of the Bengals Ravens. We'll break all these games down further, obviously, on our Thursday preview. But Bills Dolphins are divisional rivals. They've played twice already. They split the series 1-1. In fact, 2 one-score games between them. And the Bengals and the Ravens are divisional rivals. And they say familiarity breeds contempt. Well, there's going to be a lot of contempt between them, because not only are they going up against each other for the 3rd time this season, of course, it's in back-to-back weeks. And they also split their series. So when Lamar Jackson was at quarterback earlier in the season, and earlier when maybe the Bengals weren't on their hot run and the offensive line was a bit more, inconsistent. That's the word I'll use. The Ravens did beat the Bengals. And look, they won 27-16 this weekend. Fair enough, but Lamar Jackson wasn't a quarterback. That's not exactly a thumping success that they should be relying upon. That's going to be a tough game for them. I think, if I'm being honest, this wildcard slot, when I look at all 6 games, there is no one standout game that you can't go, oh my God, I can't wait to see that. That's going to be absolutely fascinating and fantastic to see. Maybe if the Packers had gone in there, the Packers going into the 49ers, the perennial rivalry and loss that they get to the 49ers in the playoffs might have been up there. But the Packers blew it and the Lions beat them, so they're not there and we don't have to worry about them. Out of all of the games, I'm actually probably most intrigued, really, by this Bengals-Ravens game, because nothing will impress Ravens fans more than the opportunity on such a cold streak to deliver a dagger blow to their divisional rival. So, fascinating times ahead.
Thanks, Mark. I don't know if the 2 minutes warning from Colm was actually for me or for everybody or for just for you, but let's go on, crack on with the NFC very, very quickly. So the NFC is on also this weekend. We've got a great bumper weekend of football, and Eagles are on a bye week this week. So we have on Sunday, we've got the Vikings and the Giants, 49ers and the Seahawks. And then we've got way out on Tuesday, we've got the Bucs and Dallas. Quick fire round on your thoughts on this weekend, guys, before we go.
I think that the Bucs are very lucky to be running into a Cowboys team, and Dak Prescott in awful form. Tom Brady gets lucky again.
Luck or design, you never know. Luck or design. 49ers on the hottest run, going against the Seahawks. It's going to be a tough game, 2 West Coast rivals, but the 49ers are going to be looking forward to that, being in Santa Clara at home for at least 2 games in their mind for the playoffs.
Brian, do you have any comments?
Giants lost on Christmas Eve to the Vikings on last-second field goal. I can see another tight game again. It'd be interesting to see whether the Giants can reverse it around this time. I think that's one of the most intriguing games of the weekend. A lot of people are concerned about this Vikings team and whether they can win another close game. People feel like it's run its course now. We'll see.
Right, and with that, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Calla, we're so sorry you had to drop off, but thank you for tuning in on YouTube. It was great to have you here. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We are going to be back on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, just to confirm, going through all the games in full and what's coming up the week ahead. You never know, there might be more hiring and firings before then. Thanks for watching.